Hey, welcome back. Part two, the Costco Yardistry Greenhouse. This is where I'm going to show some tips, some ideas, and some issues that I ran into with this greenhouse. So I'm going to start from the bottom, probably work my way up, maybe go around the side, and then we'll end up on the roof. So right here, down at the bottom, my posts were 4x4 posts. I've seen people use 4x6. I think the 4x6 could be a little bit better, which would give you some surface space for moving the greenhouse to center it if you needed to. In my posts, I hammered in three 24-inch rebar pieces. So on the ends, I did one at that angle, and then I did the other one at a different angle, and then the center one is pretty much straight down. So that's what I did for the post. And when I wanted to put it on these posts, I had to move it in a way that these brackets that were L brackets, I had to actually kind of pound down to almost flat to make them work so I could attach the greenhouse to the posts. So that's just a couple little issues that I ran into, but it worked out. One side of the greenhouse actually has the L bracket, and excuse me, and it was able to work on that side, but on this side, and I think on another side, I had an issue where the greenhouse just had to be moved a certain way. Now, these posts, most of these posts have these grooves in them, and the panels, and this panel, and this panel, they all slide down in these grooves, and then you screw the whole thing together. Now, I wanted the door on the front. The posts for the door don't have the grooves, which makes sense. However, by putting the door on the front and not having the grooves on the sides of the posts, this panel would sit up too high, which would cause an issue at the peak. So what the panel does, it actually uses about 2 inches of the groove at the top. And if you use the posts for the door, that panel cannot fit in those grooves, and it just sits on top of the post, and it causes a problem later on. So I wanted the door here, but it actually ended up on the side. But it worked out. So let's move around here to the side. As you can see, my angle brackets are good here. Like I said, these panels slide down into the grooves here. When you attach the front panel and the side panel, there's a groove on this that fits inside here. It was easier for me to actually take this the windowsill off, fit it in, screw the pieces in at the top here and at the bottom, and then once they were together, then I would put the windowsill back on. And then I would slide this down inside and make sure that it all fits perfectly. There's some tape that goes on the top and bottom of these pieces. There's a little notch on the panels. The little notch has to be on the lower right side from the outside view always. That includes the front panels, the side panels, and even the roof panels. What I did is on that notch on both sides of the panel, on the tape itself, I used a Sharpie marker and I colored the front side and the back side, so I knew exactly where that notch was. And I knew that that Sharpie marker area, that little scribble, always was on the lower right side from the outside view. The one recommendation that I would make when doing the base also is find your foundation pieces. and lay them on your posts. The longer pieces are the sides, the shorter ones are on the front and the back. That way you know where it's going to sit on your posts. Then if you have to make any cuts to your posts, it's easier that way to do it and make sure that your posts are not going to be cut too short. I didn't do that. I got lucky and my posts were fine. But that was just a recommendation that once I was putting this thing together, I realized that that would have been helpful. Let's see. The roof. In the directions, it says to attach this black piece and this black piece on the roof. Problem with that is that if your pieces are not aligned correctly, this panel is not going to slide in as easily as you would want it to. At the peak is also kind of like very similar to this, and there's actually a notch. There's a groove in that peak that goes all the way across. So the top of the panel has to fit in that groove also. So I found it easy just to put one piece on, slide it up in there, have somebody hold it for you so that it doesn't come out, and then slide this piece up and then screw it all down. I also took some clear silicone caulk. They give you 2 tubes, but I ended up buying 3 more. And I put some on there and then I screwed it down. I just doing that was just my own personal preference to avoid any type of leakage, especially, from the rain and snow, depending on where you live. I did that also on the round pieces, and I caulked at the bottom of each panel. I actually think the directions say to caulk on the panel itself, but I overdid it. I caulked everywhere because I did not want water coming in at all whatsoever. One of the other issues that I found at the back here is that I had a peak issue, and on these pieces are these numbers. And I was looking at it from the outside. I'm like, what? So one number was this piece, and then the other number was this piece. And I'm looking at it, and I'm trying to figure it out because my pieces were not aligning correctly. And I don't know if it was just an issue with the manufacturing, but to me, it seemed like that my numbers were transposed. So I took the pieces and I flipped them and turned them around, and it actually worked. I do have a gap up there because the peak was not becoming flush like it said to. So I do have a gap that I had to take one of that really top piece up there, and I had to trim it on the back side, and I knew it was going to affect something later on. And there's a cross piece. There's 2 cross pieces that come together. And of course, the one cross piece was not going to fit. So I had to trim that down just a little bit just to get it to slide in so that the 2 pieces would come together. Of course, my one cross piece, which when we get inside, I'll show you, was warped. So I had to take a clamp the pieces together and screw it. And I left it that way to make sure that it held and release the clamp. So we're going to go inside here. So I don't know if you can see way up there at the top, you can see that space way up there in the corner. These 2 pieces that come across, those are your beams. The one left one I had to trim down a little bit, but I got it to work. And it was actually the left one that was actually warped. So I had to use that clamp, like I said, and I screwed in from both sides all the way across to make sure that that stayed together. Let's see. Oh, yes. So this little window right here has this attachment that is supposed to open when it's either too hot or too humid. Some of the issues that I've seen other people with this greenhouse that had YouTube videos, what they did was is that they removed that piece and didn't put it on because it would open up at a time and then it would start raining. Some greenhouses have that window on the roof of the greenhouse. Mine actually had it on the back, which I'm pretty happy about. So I just used a black handle just to be able to open and close it. And I just kind of prop it open if I need to. The shelving, they recommended a certain height from the windowsill. You can actually go lower if you want. I went with what the directions said. And at first I was kind of like, wow, this is a little too high. But it actually worked out. This shelf right here is a permanent shelf. This shelf actually was not at first supposed to be permanent. You could take it and attach it underneath and it would just hang there. I opted not to do that. I decided to make it more permanent. So I did screw it in all the way on the ends to make it that way. That way it doesn't move itself. I'm going to try to think of, oh yeah, so I'm going to try to switch with you real quick. This door, they tell you to have this flush so that the door, when it closes, they also say to add this one flush. Problem that I found is that if you put this piece on and this piece on, it always caught here for some reason. So I removed it and made sure that the door was closed. I had somebody just hold it closed for me. Then I added this piece to make it flush with the door. Every time I tried to open it, it would push out, and it actually pushed out and cracked this piece right here. So I had to add in extra screws on the front and the side in order to keep it intact. And I removed it and this piece, like I said, closed the door, then put this on, and then put this on. And I don't have any issues with the door. So I think that pretty much covers it. I can't think of anything else. If you have any questions, leave me a comment and I will definitely answer. I think it's important to caulk everywhere, even though it says in some places, but better to be safe than sorry. So yeah, leave me a comment if you have a question and I'll try to help you out based on my experience with this. And thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe and have a good day. Hey, real quick, one thing I did think of, and I wanted to give a shout out to another YouTuber who did this, and I thought it was a great idea. Unfortunately, I went back to look for the video and I couldn't find it. But on the ends of the pieces for the greenhouse, they stamped a number. Rather than try to find each piece by looking at the number, take a stack of Post-its and a black Sharpie marker, write the number down, and stick it to that piece. It is so much easier to find that piece when you need it than to try to search and look at the ends of back and forth of the piece to make sure you have the right one. I thought it was a great idea, so I used it. As my dog is hyperventilating next to me.